Okay, thank you very much. Can everybody hear me okay? Good. Turn the lights on to kind of bring you all back to life. This is a hard time to give a talk and a hard time to listen, and hope you can bear with me a little bit. I have my colleague here, Evan Goodman. Why don't you stand up, Evan? Evan's
Hi, Evan.
I'm 40 years into my practice, and so I'm heading toward the finish line. And, Evan's from John Hopkins, highly trained, and he's going to be taking my place. I had the opportunity to start in pretty early in my practice. I've been practicing for 40 years, pain psychologist. Early on, I was embedded in emergency rooms and medical surgical teams, and my front-end work was severe trauma, crises, basically seeing patients on the worst day of their life. It could be intractable pain where the message to the patient is there's no cure, you're going to have to live with it the rest of your life. Or cancer, your life's going to be shortened, your quality of life's not going to be measured in length of years, but more quality of days. Or spinal cord injury, where yesterday, your legs work, today they don't. Or people who are traumatized by something that unimaginable, unforgivable things. And so I would see people at kind of the worst times, and I moved from that into treating pain and musculoskeletal. I ended up with my PhD in physiology and psychology. And so today I'm going to talk about chronic medical illness. And chronic means there's no cure, there's really no fix, it's progressing, and your job is to manage. And in terms of myasthenia gravis, just like other conditions I've talked about, I've kind of learned one thing about life, and it's fairly unpredictable. Why one person gets the diagnosis and why not. Why sometimes bad things happen to good people. But I've also learned in these 40 years that people are really good at surviving, and that people have really innate capacity to manage very tough situations. And it's a range. Like some people get a bad diagnosis and they basically just survive with it. Others go a little farther and they, what I call, heal and grow. And some even deepen and strengthen. And that's what we kind of heard nicely today with Lisa about Criglio, and that people actually go on to be better. And it's hard to imagine, faced with a crisis, people come the other side and grow and stretch and learn, but they do. So in terms of MG, I remember first patient I saw, I was already practicing. I didn't even hear about it in my training, and so I went to Dr. Google and it said grave muscle weakness. And the first time I ever heard the word grave, I was thinking when I was a little kid, my grandpa was really sick, and asked my aunt, "Is he going to be okay?" She said his condition is very grave. So I saw grave at the end of the line. So it's it's a fearful kind of thing, and people start thinking about quality of life, as we've talked about, muscle fatigue, dependency. But basically, the first thing you start to ask about is, what's it mean? Why me? Why now? Why this? What's it mean to my family? What's it mean to the life I've been living? Mixed in with some hopefulness. There's new medications, new breakthroughs. There are a lot of interesting ideas about medications and trials. But right away, when you get the MG diagnosis, you know one thing: things are going to change. Lifestyle adjustments, routines, who does what, when, where. And then very quickly reality sets in, because many people have to keep going. They have to still work. Family members have to adjust, roles change, and life goes on. And most people roll with it and surprisingly just keep on going. But they're always asking similar questions. What's lost? What's left? What will now be? Once they deal with the shock and come to grips with it, then they start working on the emotions. And living with MG brings up lots of emotions. And people move through emotions, they get stuck in emotions. Some will spend minutes in them, some will spend weeks, some will spend lifetimes stuck in some of them. And they're the usual ones: denial, bargaining, anger, depression, acceptance. When they're stuck in the denial part, they're into the early stuff. It can't be myasthenia gravis. It'll be a mild version. They feel frozen. When they're stuck or working on the bargaining, it'll be hard work will fix it. new research, it'll go into remission. Oftentimes people get stuck in the angry part of it. Be angry at themselves, life, their body, God, why me, why now, why this? I don't have control over some things. My independence is going. They may even go after their caregivers angrily. And then they start to worry and sadness starts to set in, and then they'll run into a block of time of depression. It's usually about I'm becoming dependent or I may need assistance. It's what I call the hard conversation. My plan, my life trajectory is now changed, and I'm going to have to deal with some new changes. And sometimes some new emotions, guilt and shame. Be guilt that I'm not living up to my expectations that I've set for myself, or shame that I'm not living up to the expectations other people had for me, that I'm not hitting the mark I set for myself. And as they work through the emotions, they start to deal with the symptoms. Eventually they get to a point where they accept, and they basically are saying to themselves, it is what it is. It's not a resignation, it's just more of moving toward a commitment. I'm going to deal with things differently in a new life. And conversations are going along the lines of, I need to be moving on. I still have control over most things. I recognize that change is part of living. I'm letting go of a past life, well lived. I'm now looking toward a different life, better life. I can't change the facts. I can change how I'm thinking about my condition, and I can change what I'm going to do about my condition. I can change my response, and that's a big milestone. Get past the emotions, recognize the symptoms, realize that change is coming. And then thinking about, I've got to let go of what's lost. I've got to take an inventory of what's left. I'm going to focus on what I'm going to do right now, and I've got to take action, and take action right now, right in this present moment, just like Lisa was talking about. It's kind of nice to listen to her talk because it really fits the science and it fits the research in psychology. It's more of a mindfulness, present moment management. So some people get that far, and then some go even farther in terms of coping with symptoms and emotions, and they go to the spot where it's really rewarding for everyone, doctors who are treating them, but they start to grow psychologically. They move beyond managing and coping and living with the diagnosis, and then you start hearing about terms like resiliency, grit, courage. Resiliency is basically a term that's been pulled out of mechanics, that an object can be stressed and twisted and turned and manipulated, and when the stress is over, it pops right back to its original form. That's what they say, when you use it with people, they say the person's resilient. No matter which way they bend and twist, they always pop back to who they are. Flexibility. They also have another term that's getting popular, which is grit. It means that they take action, they accept what's going on, and they act on it. And courage, it's interesting because courage shows up in our psychology literature, and it shows up really nice in Lisa's talk, and it grows out of taking action at every opportunity. So all these changes I've talked about, the patient goes through, the caregivers go through the same changes. And the reason they go through it is that they're in it for the long haul. And the long haul for them means patience and understanding, and they too adjusting to role changes. Particularly, what I see is handling what I call worrisome life events. Money, chores, family day-to-day routines, questions about who's in charge and who does what. And out of all that, the friends and caregivers grow too. So some go past just living with symptoms and emotions, and they actually, what I call, heal and grow. And that's what we call resilient people, or some people call them resilience. Again, research looks at them, and there's psychologists like me are always at the end of the line. I kept thinking I was going to work with crises and then work my way up and do intervention, prevention, and do research on who are those people who bounce right back. Who are those people that are faced with the most unthinkable crises. And so with the state police, will work with first responders, people who face horrific situations or chronic illness. And there's a group of them that just bounce right back. They go to bed, sleep like a baby, wake up in the morning, and they're people we call resilient. So we pick their brains and try to figure out what are they doing, what are they thinking, how do they manage stress, what's the internal dialogue, and I'm going to go over that with you now, okay? And I gave a handout, which was a list of ideas that's come out of the research. A number of places spend a lot of time studying people who do very well under stress, and those are the kinds of internal dialogues they have in their head. They have an internal conversation, and those are the things they generally agree on. So, how do these resilients do it? First, they face the crisis. They face it squarely, they face it quickly. They'll say right away, I'm at a fork in the road, this is a trauma, this was big, this is a significant diagnosis, there's going to be losses and gains. I see it a lot with our spinal cord injury patients. They say right away, I'm going to have to develop a new narrative in my head. I'm going to be having to work that out. And then they have this internal dialogue that goes on over weeks or months or maybe the lifetime. But initially they're saying, I'm vulnerable, do I have strength? Will my life be a life of grief, or will it be a life of peace? Doors have closed, others may open. I must go down some new paths. These were never planned, it wasn't what I wanted. I must create a different narrative for my life. They'll say, my weaknesses are now exposed, my strengths are going to be called upon. Relationships will change, new relationships will emerge. So they squarely face the crisis, and they start to develop those core beliefs that you're looking at. Second thing they do is what I call acceptance in action. And what they accept is that there are some things that are outside of their personal control now, but nonetheless they go straight into action. And there was a psychologist years ago who wrote a book. He said, I practiced my whole life, and it boiled down to working on 4 things that people struggle with. And it has to do with control and things they can't control. So you read the book, and there's 4 sections to it. And basically one section is all things in life change and end. Everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end. We celebrate new beginnings, we grieve losses. We're not born on the same day, we don't all die on the same day. There's a staggered starts of everything, staggered finish. All things change and end. Things don't always go according to plan, and things are not always fair. Think about it. We all have our plans, we all lay out how it's going to roll out. Things don't always go according to plan. We don't have that kind of control. And things aren't always fair. Third area he spent his life talking to patients about was pain and death are a part of life. The fourth one he spent almost all of his time was about people. He said people are not always loving and loyal and kind all the time. We're human, we're fallible, we're imperfect. We're not always loving and loyal. We make mistakes, we're into our own world. We're not always loyal and kind all the time. We all try to be all that most of the time. So things change and end, don't go according to plan, things aren't fair. People are not always loving and loyal all the time. He says once you can accept that, you can move on. The third area was what I call energy allocation or planning. Those that go on recognize that there's limits to their energy. If you go on the internet and you punch in spoon theory or 10 spoons, there's all kinds of websites, and they'll basically say we're all born with 10 spoonfuls of energy. You know, and then things happen. Maybe MS happens, maybe chronic pain happens, cancer happens. So now we're down to 6 spoons. And then we have to get up in the morning. We got to get up and dress and brush our teeth and take our shower and try to do some meaningful activity. And we used up a couple more spoons, so now we have 3 spoons. And how are we going to cleverly and effectively use those 3 spoons to get done what needs to get done for that day? So energy allocating, planning, what patients will talk about is balances. They balance activity and rest, so they're pacing themselves. They balance their work and play. And they collapse down to simple pleasures. And I spend a lot of time with my patients talking about just enjoying the moment, just being present. You know, just like if you had a T-shirt that said, "Be here now." You know, just I'm standing here, you listen to me, I'm talking to you. The past is gone, it can't be retrieved, the future hasn't happened. Just enjoy the moment, and be present. And people collapse down to that mindfulness. And they also start to change what they're pursuing. When people are moving along and really developing and growing, they're not talking about what's going to make me happy. Oh boy, it's going to make me happy if I get this or get that or have that. This works out and my team wins. It's not about what makes them happy. That's overrated. They get past their pursuit of happiness and they think more about better questions about what am I grateful for? Am I kind and compassionate to others? And they know that if they do that, that happiness will follow. If you're grateful, compassionate, kind, do the simple pleasures, happiness follows. Another area is for people who are resilient is they hit the wall. We all hit the wall, we run into something that's bigger, and when they do something that's called internal locus of control. Internal locus of control means that you look to yourself to solve a problem. They don't blame the environment, they don't blame the diagnosis, they don't act out. If things don't work out, they don't rationalize or try to justify their mistake or shortcoming. They don't blame outside forces. They'll actually turn inward and they'll look at it and fault their own tactic and try to develop a new strategy. They usually utterly refuse to accept failure. They'll recalibrate and keep going at it and keep going at it. And they continually look to themselves for strength to solve problems. And they truly believe that energy and effort will influence events. And then they go on and they focus on doing the things that they know they can do well. And then they go on and form alliances with other people. So people who are resilient don't go it alone. They form healthy alliances. Psychologists like to put things in little boxes and categories, and there was a book written a while ago about types of friends, and they said there's really, you boil all your friends down to one of 6 types, and some are 3 or 4 of them, but one type is informational. I have a friend who's a retired neurologist, and his name is Fred, and if I ever need to know anything, I'll say, Fred, I'm trying to figure this out. And he'll say, here's a website over here, there's a doctor up in Traverse City, I'll get you his number, he'll talk to you about that, da-da-da-da. He's Mr. Information, and I know when I need that, I know where to find him. And he has lots of other things too. I got another friend named Steve, he's the emotional guy. I'll talk to him about something I'm thinking about, and Steve will go, well, how do you feel? Or what else do you feel? Or it sounds like in addition to being confused, you're getting a little angry, or you feel disrespected, or he floods me with the emotional side, and I go, oh yeah, I guess maybe I'm stuck on the emotion too. And then I got a buddy named Dan who's a dentist, and dentist, as Dan always says, I repair it, replace it, or put a new one in. This is like black or white. He says, I don't know about the feelings, and I don't know about what you're talking about, but you got about 3 choices, John. And so I run it by him, and actually his dad's a veterinarian, a friend of mine, and he's the big decision maker. He said, John, you're too much information, too much emotions. Don't talk to Dan. He's just trying to break it down. So let's make 2 paths and pros and cons, or strengths and weaknesses, or cost to benefit. Let's just make a decision. And then I got another couple of buddies. I like to have a bunch of these who are cheerleaders, and they'll say, I don't know what you're supposed to do either, but I'm going to support you and I'm going to back you 100%, and it's going to be great whatever you do. Then I got a couple of ones I really like are kind of the humor and laughter, the lighthearted ones. I got a buddy named Joe, and I can tell the whole story to him, and he'll say, sounds like you got a problem, let's go eat some pizza or drink a beer or something. He says, why are we talking? We should be fishing right now. Yeah, great idea, I should be fishing right now. And then you find you got to have a couple of those, and you got to, when people are resilient, have friends, they develop them, and then they work with them, and they keep busy with them. You don't just have them. You go seek them when you need them, but you figure out projects that you can work on together and do activity, meaningful activity. And if you can take one of them and do something that's helpful and gives to others, then that really expands your healthy alliances and sets up new experiences, appreciation, gratitude, compassion, learn new things, distraction. So people who are resilient, they don't go it alone. They don't just crawl in the corner and cook their head up and come out a better person. They're working with somebody all the time. They're also very affiliative. They get connected to healthy groups of people. I edit medical textbooks and peer review, and I write in medical textbooks with others. And I was asked some years ago to put together a chapter on groups. Like, what good is it for patients to be in groups? MG group, chronic pain group, cancer group. And 20 years ago, there were 40 articles in the literature about it. And I couldn't believe it. Those articles basically said, if you belong to groups of people that you feel comfort with and you feel supported by, then you go to the medical, physical side, good things start happening. You survive your cancer longer, you get out of the hospital a couple days earlier, you move through rehab better. That if you can say, I have groups of people I get comfort and support from, it's medicinal. And why? Because people who are resilient, they know there's going to be times when they need to talk to somebody else about their self or their feelings, and they may need some help doing some internal reflecting about their core beliefs, and others can encourage you and help you with trust. Groups help you stretch and learn, even in some most imaginable circumstances. So when we debrief with the state police, it's a critical event. We debrief one at a time real quickly so that the stories are fresh, and then we put them in a group and debrief again, and when we debrief a second time, it's so that they can start to stretch and learn and hear other people's parts and learn that they have those same parts. And so people are, when you need to be affiliative, you've got to be affiliative. And then over time, if you get through all that, people who have chronic illness or stress, they become deeper thinkers. By that I mean that they do more internal reflection and debriefing. Because they know this, when things go bad and they don't work out, they know that their thoughts and feelings can swirl around with disconnectedness, and they need to go in deep inside and reflect about what just happened. Maybe it's a downturn in your symptoms, or you're going from remission back into active symptoms. They think, I got to go deep inside, and I got to think about this, and I got to reflect. Otherwise, I might shut down, or I might freeze up, or I might get agitated, or ramp up, or do distractions, or high-risk behaviors. You see this particularly in the younger patients. They might overeat, or get into denial, or defense mechanisms, or rage, or act out. Those are all temporary. So the sheet of paper I handed on the back, there's defense mechanisms, and you want to go toward assertiveness and compensation and sublimation. You don't want to get into denial and blaming and the other ones. Okay? So as people go deeper and strengthen and grow and stretch with myasthenia gravis diagnosis or any severe chronic diagnosis, they get to the spot where not only are they coping and managing, but they're getting well, which sounds paradoxical, but they're getting well and better. They're figuring out that myasthenia gravis cannot do a lot of things. And they'll start to say, this condition of mine, my cancer, my chronic pain, my paralysis, in a lot of ways it's so limited. It can't really suppress my memories. I got all my memories, long-term memory. It can't silence my courage. I can still have guts. I can still have courage. It can't kill a true friendship. A friend's a friend, depending on what my health status is. Actually, it might grow friends. Sometimes you find who the friends are. It can't shatter hope, and it can't conquer my spirit. There's just, they'll say there's just so much this condition can't do. So in the end, those who deepen and strengthen, in spite of myasthenia gravis, get to the last step, which I talk about, or think about, is they start to answer what I call life's big questions. And it's not, what do I need to be happy? What will make me happy? But they'll start to talk to you about, why am I here? Why do I get up every day? What's the meaning and purpose to my life? Is mine to be a life well lived? Am I kind? Do I feel compassion for others? Am I grateful? Can I find joy in simple pleasures? And will I love anyway and give just because? So you can survive the emotional and diagnostic parts of myasthenia gravis. You can survive the symptoms. You can go further and heal and cope. You can even deepen in strengthening yourself. And you can become resilient and have a meaning and purposeful life, and a life well lived in spite of myasthenia gravis. So there's a lot to the path, and that's basically what I have to say. Okay? Thank you.